The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And the monitor in the studio is not working.
That just means you got to turn it on.
Okay. I'm not going to get on my crutches and hobble over there.
Yeah, I know.
The show will be over. So. Okay, it's Wednesday. It's Hump Day.
I think it's funny. Last night in the City Council chamber, we had the open meeting law training. Not like that's important to a lot of people, but I was extremely surprised at the number of individuals who failed to show up. We had, for city councilors last night, the one where most of the complaints on 30A are being filed, we had Linda Pereira, Steve Camara, Richard Cabaceres, Cliff Ponte, and Steve Long. Cliff Ponte and Richard Cabaceres left before the meeting was even completed, somewhere around a quarter of the way through the beginning. It didn't make for a good showing, for the lack of a better expression. But the other big issue that I had was you had city councilors who were, Chip, you're making all these, I know what's going on, but remember, you're on camera.
I'm trying to get the monitor to work. So.
That's okay. So what happened is that you had city councilors asking specific questions on the complaints that have been filed against them. And I don't know if they thought Jonathan and Kevin were not knowledgeable of those complaints or not, but guess what? They were. I would just stop playing with it. It was working fine earlier.
All set.
Okay.
I know how to work that. Don't worry about it.
But the information was very valuable. It is available on the FRG TV website on video on demand. It was about an hour and a half long, and it was a very good meeting. It really was. A lot of information was presented. And the one thing that they needed to take away from this was one very important issue. If you form a quorum and you open your mouth, you're deliberating. So one of the things they gave was, because I know that one of the committees wants to do an on-site visit on ordinances in regards to a curb cut. And it's amazing how the questions were worded by some of these people so that they get the answers they want, so they know I'm not in violation, because in the training they didn't say it. But if the committee goes, and Jonathan made it clear, if you go and it's a quorum, unless it's a stated meeting that's easily accessible to everyone, don't open your mouth. Don't talk. Don't talk means don't ask questions either. Because if you start asking questions and there's a quorum, it's an open meeting law violation. And this is where this comes in. So they kept, because currently there's an appeal on 2017-6 or 7. I can't remember what it is, where they were found guilty because they were debating issues while sitting in their seats while not part of the committee. And they kept saying, well, if I sit in my seat, then it counts. And they kept saying, it's not the seat that you're sitting in. It's the fact that you open your mouth. And then Steve Long, of course, well, you're going to take away my constitutional right to say what I want to say. He said, no, that's public participation. But you can't ask a question. You cannot state, well, I wouldn't vote for that, or I'm not going to, oh, you shouldn't vote for that, because then you're deliberating. So there is some restriction on what you can do.
Well, CJ, this is the thing that boggles my mind. It's like, look, now we're going to start jumping up and down. You're denying my constitutional right to freedom of speech and all this other. But, you're not. When you go into certain venues, especially if it's a political, institution, there are rules. There are rules of order. You just can't walk into the Senate or the Congress and begin to just do anything you want. There are rules. There are rules of order. There are rules of protocol. And you have to abide by those rules. It's like going to, like I said, I always use the analogy, go to a baseball game and run up the third baseline rather than the first baseline because it's closer to home. So you can't do that. And you don't lose your right to speak. What you do is you lose your right to have a debate without the full, once you get a quorum, you technically can affect the outcome of something without offering the rest of the city council the opportunity to be there. So you got to be very careful, and that's kind of a, it's not really that abstract, a thought. I mean, think about it. If they allowed this, you could get a few city councilors that could basically call meetings, not invite the other people, and then have a quorum and then affect any kind of change they want to. It's not legal. This is the reason that we have all these. They seem like they're a pain in the neck, but they're it's part of it. Nobody is stopping Steve Long from standing out on a street corner on a soapbox and yelling anything he wants. That's his right as an American.
Rebranding.
That's right. Yeah. Like I love the F.R thing. It's like but see, that's the whole thing. There are two separate issues here. You can't walk into a courtroom and start screaming at the judge unless you want to get locked up for contempt of court.
Well, if it's 30 below and you don't have a house, that's probably why they do it.
Yeah, exactly. But, the thing is that, they're making this, I love it when they make this spin like these rules are there to restrict their rights. No, we're not restricting your rights. We're trying to make it so it's a fair playing field, that everybody is there, everybody has the right.
Ooh,
and
you swore again.
And the thing is that this, they continue to forget that they are representatives of the people. That's the thing that really gets me. That, look, there are rules. There are rules of order. When you go to a union meeting, you've got either Roberts or Atwoods or somebody. You've got Cushings for the city council. And, there are rules everywhere. There are rules in the House. There are rules in the Senate. There are rules in the state Senate. You just can't go in there. There are rules in the court of law. And this is to maintain order. And, but your rights under the Constitution are not being infringed. They're actually there to protect your rights.
Yeah, and, just because you have the freedom of speech doesn't mean you can walk into a loaded auditorium and scream fire.
That's correct.
It's just...
And that has been adjudicated.
That's right.
I mean,
that's why I used it.
Yeah, that has been adjudicated. You can't, those inalienable rights are not all-encompassing. There are certain lines that you can't cross, because then you do what? You get the, then you are infringing on the rights of the public, to have a peaceful, government, and you can't do certain things. And this is the thing that it disturbs me, because there's always a manipulation by politicians to gain their agenda rather than to do what the people want. And we see that, our last show, we had a very long and comprehensive discussion of the proposed charter, and which again is another, in my opinion, an attempt to give absolute power to a government that by our Commonwealth Constitution, by our United States Constitution, by our Declaration of Independence, is supposed to be a government that is representative and run by those who are governed, to paraphrase the Declaration of Independence. But this is what we have. We have to beat back this, and we see what it's doing in Washington. Not only in Fall River, we see. Look at the healthcare fiasco now. It's going to be. Everything is down partisan lines, and we've basically destroyed government because we're allowing our representatives not to represent us, but to represent their own agendas and their own party. And it's completely obstructed the ability of this nation to move.
Well, what does that matter, right? It's not like it's a big deal.
Yeah.
But the biggest concern that I had with this was that you had two school committee members there, which was Joe Martins and Gabe Andrade.
Probably.
And Paul Coogan. There were three. Okay. The others had to go to the reception and the meeting with the SPED parents with the school superintendent. And the school superintendent actually sent an email to Patrick Higgins telling him that he had to go to that instead of some training that was, his reception was more important. Well, Patrick made a comment, well, then you're just painting the target on your back. And he goes, well, I have screen captured this and, I'll make sure I use this in my defense. The bottom line is, if you don't know, then how can you avoid the problem? And they didn't show. Several members of the various boards, the park board was there, licensing was there. So, when you're looking, elections was there, the entire elections crew was there. Of course, the city clerk and her staff were there. And it was good to see that type of outpouring of people who wanted to know what they can and cannot do. And that was important to me. And I think that was important to anyone else that was there. And there were some citizens. But of course, the controversy arose because guess what? I was in the room. So I'm not going to get into some of the diatribe and comments that were made in regards to the manifesto, as I like to call it. But I did ask Mike Miozza to please step aside so we could talk after the meeting was over. And we talked about this. And he says, well, you're going to understand. We are not repealing the recall. It's in the charter. I said, You've got in the charter that you're going to repeal it. And he says, yeah, but we wrote it into the charter. I said, yeah, you did, but you go down a couple of paragraphs and what's there? Any citizens initiative petition or recall requires 20% of the voters to vote for it to happen. He goes, yeah, well, we actually took that down. It used to be 33. I said, when have we ever had 33%? When have we had 20% at a municipal election vote?
Well, it's been a long
time for
that. Probably the 70s or
right.
The 70s, or maybe even the 60s. When we had a different demographic in this city, we had larger turnouts but like you said, CJ, this is it's all baloney because, and I think you made the point, and we've discussed it, that if you're going to make that criteria that 20% have to appear at an election in order to validate the election, then we'll never have an election because guess what? 3/4 of the elections we've had over the past 15 or 20 years would be null and void.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have 20% of the electorate turn out.
But
so
here's the thing.
It's absurd.
But here's the thing. That 20% only applies to anything the citizens do.
No, I understand that, but
so it doesn't apply to electing a mayor. It doesn't elect a city council or a school committee. It only if the citizens want to revoke something the mayor has done or the city council has done or change it. No, you can't do that. And as I explained it to him, to Mike yesterday, I said, you have a recall. You have 16% of the voters come out to recall the elected official. You're that elected official. 16% can't turn out. What are you going to say? Oh, I'm still in office. It was less than 16%. You know what I mean?
Well, it goes to the point we made on the last show that this charter is doing everything possible to make it as difficult as possible for the people to exercise their right to run the government, which is a constitutional guarantee, as we've cited on numerous occasions. Part of the first Section 5 of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts clearly states that the people, they are at all times our agents and answerable to us. Our United States Constitution and our Declaration of Independence clearly states that this is a government of the governed. The governed dictate what our government is. Yet, everything that has to do with the citizens exercising their right to run the government when they're not happy with the government has been made much more difficult. And the thing that bothers me most, the recall really disturbs me. But I'll tell you what disturbs me more. This proposed charter is attempting to make it more difficult for a citizen to run for public office. And I think that is a fundamental right of this nation, that everybody, regardless of their station, should be able to run for public office. I think that enhances our government. I think it makes this country more inclusive, because then people can run. They can bring their message. Just the idea, just to hold a thought that we have the right to determine who is worthy of running for office in a government that is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, to me, is absolutely reprehensible. There's absolutely no way you can justify that. It's one of the problems we have in this nation today. Even though everybody has a right to run for most offices, you can't. You've got to be backed by PACs, by billionaires. When people begin to spend millions, not a million, but millions of dollars to become a congressman or a senator. We had a mayor of Fall River one time spend almost $500,000 running for a $100,000 a year job. Barely made it in, but he did because of the money. I think that's one of the problems we have in this nation today. You know, that the average person cannot run, especially for state or federal office. But that's one of the saving graces of local politics. We can have someone who doesn't want to sell his soul to the players, to the money men in the city. We can have someone who wants to just say, get up and say, these are my ideas. I don't have a lot of money. I'm not I'm not a CEO. I'm a regular guy who I have a problem with the way the direction of the city is going, and these are my ideas. And you know something? That's the reason you don't vet people, because guess what? If they can run, everybody should run. Chances are, if they're running for office, they'll show up and vote at least. And secondly, maybe you'll hear some ideas that we haven't heard before instead of rehashing the same old thing. So, does this whole tactic disturb me? Yeah, you're right, CJ. This is making it easy for politicians to do anything they want, and virtually impossible for the voter and for the taxpayer and for the citizen to run his own government.
And, you went into a couple of great things, and you're absolutely right. It creates the framework for the elected monarchy. And as I said to Mr. Miozza yesterday, it's creating a fascist state. And like it or not, people, that's what it is. And whether people want to say, I'm just being a nitpicker on this or not, and I told him very clearly, I said, I have gone over that thing line by line. Okay, and you missed something right at the beginning. Where's the city seal? Where's the city flag? I said, so if this passes on January 1st, we got to go around the city, take down all the city flags, destroy them, repaint every city vehicle, the fire engines, the DCM trucks, the police cars, take the city seal off it because we don't have one. Well, no, it's not there. Therefore, it doesn't exist. And you reference it throughout the charter.
Yeah, there's the key.
So where's this seal? So every administration comes in, we can change it. So this year it's going to be the FR logo that, under the rebranding campaign. But if he gets defeated in the election and somebody else comes in, the next guy comes in and says, oh no, we're going to have a pile of crap and it's going to be a big turd. And what's to prevent that from happening? Because there's nothing in this charter that lays it out. And that's why I said very clearly when this whole process started, when they hired the consultant, and I have nothing personal against Mr. McGoldrick or his center at UMass, but again, there's that name again. Where do we get all our consultants from? And we hire them all the time. The worst part about it is Mr. McGoldrick and his association of consultants are the ones that write all the opinions and all the information on the state website. So where can you go? Why didn't we just go somewhere else?
Well, why did we go anywhere at all when the voters actually voted for a charter commission?
Right.
They elected commissioners to do this.
Right.
They didn't elect them to hire somebody to do it. They elected them to do it. And if they didn't feel they were competent enough to do it, and by the way, what I voted for on that ballot was to basically just bring this charter into the 21st century and then have some more charter revisions that got into specifics that could be studied for a long time, prioritize them and do it. Fundamentally, to clean up this charter, to eliminate some stuff. That's what I voted for. I did not vote for them to completely throw the charter out, hire a consultant to do what we did, and they're saying, well, this disappears in this charter. Yeah, well, it's boilerplate. It's just like contract language. They took stuff that's already in this state. It's already in some. We wanted to revise the City of Fall River's charter specifically for the City of Fall River by Fall River people who were elected to be charter commissioners, not to go out and hire somebody to bring in a charter, use language from everybody else in the world, and then make it as difficult as possible for citizens to affect government. And it's just, I mean, the whole concept. Look, I've got, as you can see, I've got major issues with a lot of this proposed charter. But I was a no vote from the get-go. As soon as they hired this guy and began to throw the old charter out, that's not what I voted for.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And I will say it here publicly. I voted in favor of the charter revision. Revision.
Not a whole new one.
Not a whole new one.
Exactly.
Not chuck it in the barrel and create an entire new charter with all kinds of issues that need a lot more discussion and a lot more public input. So I was a no vote from the get-go, and now I'm a double no vote. So
Can your vote count twice?
maybe in Chicago.
I was gonna say in Chicago, right? Well, because everybody must get stoned. I think that's an old song, right?
That's it.
Everybody must get stoned.
Yep, Dylan.
And now that we're on that, the state treasurer is seeking guidance from the feds in regards to recreational marijuana, because Massachusetts is considering that a $1.1 billion industry for it. But the Trump administration decided, no, we're not going to allow that. And according to Spicer, his press secretary, said, there's going to be aggressive enforcement on that. Deb Goldberg, the state treasurer, sent a letter to the DOJ saying, what's going to be the new policy? Because guess what? If it is going to be enforced, DEA can walk into Massachusetts every day of the week and just start closing these places down, seizing all their assets. Okay? Where's your industry going to go now? And her position was that comments from the Trump administration said that the DOJ may be considering a change, Goldberg wrote in the letter. I would greatly appreciate your prompt response to clarify whether this is true. And if so, what changes should we prepare for before we commit significant public resources to implementing Massachusetts recreational marijuana laws? Some of those resources include the creation of a cannabis control commission and a seed to plant software package where they're going to monitor from the time you buy the seeds to the time you go and sell the crap. So it's going to be very interesting how this is going to work out, because luckily they postponed implementation, because had they not postponed it a little bit, there may have been a significant problem.
Yeah, they better get a clarification, because I can already see they've already gotten a nice political committee. Because who among you, raise your hand, wants to be a cannabis commissioner?
Yeah,
so that's it. Another political job, another political committee. Everybody, they have to have commissions, and just like the gaming commission,
yep.
and just like all these political jobs, they're going to have commissions and oversights, and people are going to, all their friends are going to enjoy having the power of, being a cannabis commissioner.
There you go. And I think they all have to test the product. The city tells the federal delegates about struggles with the mandated sewer project. And it was put together by State Representative Carol Fiola. I wonder if she is going to run for mayor. I mean, all of these things that she's sponsoring and she's organizing. be very interesting to see. But of course, the federal delegation came down to listen to them. Wah, 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 we got to pay for this. Wah, 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 we haven't been able to pay for it. Wah, wah, wah. And you know what? Maybe 20 years ago, when this was mandated, or 30 years ago now, when this was mandated on the city, if you stopped your complaining and your whining and going back to the judge every time you turned around, maybe we would be able to get this. Because explain this to me. The federal judges don't want to see anyone from Fall River anymore. Okay? They even said that on the record.
That's true.
They even said that on the record. We are tired of seeing Fall River here.
I think I still have the article somewhere somewhere in my files in the attic. I still have the federal judges said, I'm sick and tired of seeing Fall River up here in front of me.
Exactly. And they, excuse the way I put it, but they pissed off everybody. They pissed off the EPA, they pissed off the judiciary, and they thought they were doing the best thing for Fall River. Well, guess what? Now you're going hat in hand, asking for help. And if you don't get that help, because guess what? Fall River is not the city where you can make it here. Okay, let's be real. We're not the city that you make it here. Okay, this is the city where you beg for it here. You beg for everything. Mr. Mayor, maybe you should have changed that motto to beg for it here. And you can have for your video all the panhandlers at the bottom of the off-ramp onto Plymouth Avenue off of 195, or all the panhandlers at the corner of Rodman and Plymouth Avenue, or all the panhandlers at the bottom of President Avenue and Duval Street.
And Brayton Avenue and Easton Avenue. And so
let's just get, pick them anywhere. Go up the Flint. Go up Pleasant Street along the Flint, and you can stop and see any prostitute you want, because they're all standing on the corners, and if they're not doing that, they're panhandling. This is a city where we beg for it here. Do I think we need money from the federal government? Sure, I'd love to get it. But the fact that previous administrations, previous elected officials, did everything humanly possible to delay this entire process, thinking they were going to, because again, they always think they're going to save us money. Because why? They think in the short term, not the long. We're going to take $5 million from the state because it's going to help us with this. Oh, but the string to it is we got to take all the derelicts from South Boston because we're going to revitalize that. And they did that. Oh, and you got to take them all from here in Revere because we're going to revitalize that. And now you got to take them from Lynn. And we're going to keep sending them all to Fall River like they've done. And guess what?
Well, we've made a concentrated effort to destroy the city because we have become more and more dependent on state aid. And it's funny because we cut off on those spite of faith. We're always whining how much state aid we need. And every time we get additional state aid, they all say, look what we did, we brought more state aid. But they're not telling that we're losing a lot of our state aid because of the bond subsidies. Right. So it's kind of like we're getting back what we already lost, and we have to beg all the time. But I think Friday's show, you're going to remember to bring in that book, and we're going to show you about what we've talked about at length on this show long before this book came out. About
Hillbilly Elegy, J.D. Vance.
How economies, when you lose working people, you lose your economy. All the streetscapes and all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again if you have no jobs. And even when we had just mills, not great paying jobs, but paying jobs, we had a bustling downtown, we had a bustling Pleasant Street, we had stores, we had restaurants, we had shops, we had a decent, not a great economy, but a decent economy. We've managed to make all those people move out of the city of Fall River. We only have 37% or less that own their own property, and this is why we are always begging for money. So if you stay angry, Friday's show, we will, CJ is going to bring in something that was sent to us by a viewer, and it's going to be really, really
Speaks volumes.
Thought-provoking, yes.
Speaks volumes about Fall River, that's for sure.
Stay angry.
Stay angry. We'll see you on Friday.